popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it.
Spoil it in your face.
That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo.
Medium popcorn.
We are two ninjas spoiling movies, except on this episode, a special one between Eddie Collins and his wife, Tatiana.
Okay, so, I mean, do not refresh me, but why do we call you Eddie Collins?
It's like kind of a secret identity.
Oh, so secret.
But also like just to throw back to our popular Flashdance episode where I talked about the whole Eddie Collins thing. It just kind of stuck.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no.
You know the whole story,
no,
even though Justin didn't think I told you.
No, I know the whole Eddie thing, but I'm like, why are we still calling you Eddie?
It just rocks. It rolls with the tongue a little bit. But folks, we were talking about Challengers, the film directed by Luca Guadagnino, who also
Guadagnino?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Guadagnino. No, say it again. Say it again.
Who did Call Me By Your Name, Saprissa, and then most recently Bones and All, with where he reunited with Timothée Chalamet. This is directed by Justin Krukix, who is the partner of Celine Song, who did Past Lives, a film that was highly revered by this podcast, starring Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Faust.
Josh O'Connor.
That's what I said.
It sounds like you said Joshua Connor.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Josh O'Connor,
yeah.
who's actually British.
Yeah, I am always, I mean, not that I'm always surprised because the Brits, you know, they play Americans so well. I mean, to be fair, the Brits are the blueprints for Americans. But long story short,
yeah.
I was like watching an interview with him today and I was like, he's fucking British. Of course he is.
Yeah, and he's very like shy and stuff. He's the complete opposite of his character.
Is he British or is he like Australian?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see.
I think we just
Yeah, he's a British actor.
Yeah.
From Southampton, England.
Oh, man.
Cheerio. But yes, this is the log line is Tashi Duncan, a former tennis prodigy turned coach after a career-ending injury, is married to a champion on a losing streak. Her strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against his former best friend, who is also Tashi's former boyfriend.
Yeah. I mean,
it's messy.
It is. It is messy. It is. I liked it though. It was a good kind of messy, you know? It's like...
Yeah, it's like, I don't really know much about tennis, but like, you know, I've watched a few movies like Match Point and stuff like that, which touch on tennis, but like, it's like a metaphor for like bigger, more sinister things and about love and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about tennis either. I mean, I just never took the time to learn more about it. It's not something that super interests me. I did read actually earlier today how the screenwriter claims that he was like inspired because he was watching a tennis match. And so like watching the tennis match like sort of like inspired him to write this particular movie. I don't know if it's like this one exactly, but yeah, I mean, it's super passionate, and I mean, not that I know many people who are doubting Zendaya, but I mean, for people who are doubting Zendaya, like, she puts in the work. I don't know if you saw.
She's great in this.
She's like, you know, she's doing all these promo tours and press and whatnot, and they have released video of her doing tennis training, and she is like off the hook.
Yeah, I mean, she got paid a lot of money to do this. This is a budget of $55 million. It's pretty expensive for a movie.
I mean, she's also like a producer on it,
yeah,
right?
but that's pretty expensive for just a movie about tennis and like a love triangle, right? But I think she got paid pretty well, which I think is why they delayed the release when the strike happened. They're like, we're not going to have someone like Zendaya who can fucking promote this movie, and she's front and center on all the promo and not be able to do promo. That's just insane.
Of course. I mean, it's more than just a tennis movie, though.
Yeah, for sure.
It is like it's a love story. It's a lot of things, and it's like centered around tennis. Yep. But I mean, the actual game of tennis is not like, we're not getting an education on tennis.
No, it doesn't go thoroughly into it. I mean, you do learn about like the challenges and stuff like that. I had no idea about that to qualify for like, Wimbledon and stuff like that. I had no idea about those that process. So that was interesting to follow like the characters and like talking about that. But yeah, it kind of is about these two guys who are best friends since childhood when they were put together
boarding school.
In boarding school, and they were both tennis players at the school.
They were partnered together, so they played partners tennis.
Yeah, and it kind of like is a love story between all three of them, but like those two, like they definitely have some type of strong connection that Zendaya is able to suss out.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It is definitely, I feel like I'm getting high pitched, so I'm trying to like ring it back in. But there's a lot of homoerotic,
sure.
like scenes in here, and I think
a lot of phallic symbols with bananas.
Yeah, a lot of phallic
stuff.
sort of gestures and symbolic sort of gestures as well. I think the tension between the two characters and
Patrick and Art.
Yeah.
Josh O'Connor plays Patrick and Mike Faust plays Art.
Yeah, so they very much have. I mean, initially they read like very like sibling-esque like relationship, but the more you get to know them, you're like, oh, do they kind of have a thing for each other?
Yeah.
Which, wouldn't be far-fetched, right? And so I agree that and Tashi's also like the same age as them. So it's not, you just want to clarify, they introduce everybody in their teenage years.
Yeah, they span like about, from their like teens to 20s to 30s.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how they do it. Like, it's mostly in hair.
Yeah, and styling and whatnot. I mean, listen, if everybody's able to play, a teenage version of themselves and a 30 version of themselves, like, why not?
Yeah.
So I say that to say, I think for, I don't want to say like the younger generation, because I feel like all the generations, there's always been people who can like read a room and like figure out who's down for what. But I think a movie like this can exist in a modern time like today, because certain things are just acceptable to just say out loud. And so Tashi's character is not lacking in the like big dick energy department. Like, she is like, I'm good. I know I'm good. Like, nothing's going to stop me from being great. And, like, y'all are good, too. You could step your game up a little more. Yeah. But for the most part, like we all have an understanding and knowing of, like, who we are, what we do. And I think the biggest thing that comes across with Zendaya's portrayal of Tashi is it's her love was not necessarily these two men, but the game of tennis.
Yep.
And so her inability to continue playing professionally, is what sidetracks her to being the coach to her husband and focusing all of her energy into that. But for the most part, it is Tashi's love of tennis and what she's willing to do to stay in the game, because she can't physically play
at a high level, though.
At a high professional level.
When we get to the later years, Patrick is like living in his car. He like can't even afford a night in a hotel. Like, he's begging for food and stuff like that. And she's like, at one point, she's like, "What's that with this broke tennis player? Like, I'm just trying to do it for the love of the game." She's like, "You're a rich kid, and like you don't need to live. Like, you could be better." Like, she's calling everyone out on their shit. Like, you could be better, but you either don't want to put the work in it, or you're not passionate about this anymore. It's like very interesting how she reads. I think
guys. like she's. I mean, yes, and right, she's registered that at a young age of being like, oh, when she's introduced to both of them, right? Because they're both like trying to court her simultaneously, and they have different energy, right? And she recognizes that, and I think that she realized. So she is dating Art.
Yep.
In college. and Patrick is just kind of like
No, she's dating Patrick. Patrick's the one that plays. He goes pro. Art goes with her to Stanford, I believe.
oh yo, you're right, you're right.
Because Mike Faust is Art.
Yeah, so she's dating Patrick,
Yeah.
and they have the love for tennis. She has the professional skill. Patrick can be great, but he doesn't have the discipline, right? And so he's just kind of in it for like the celebrity. And Art has the discipline, but not necessarily like the innate skill. Like you could tell it's something he has to practice at the highest level all the time. Where someone like Tashi and Patrick, it's a little more natural for them, and so they just have to put a little extra energy.
Yeah,
into
and also,
being good.
and also, there's a difference in confidence too, because like,
Yeah.
since they first met, Tashi's always told Art, "You could beat Patrick. You just have to believe that you could beat Patrick."
Yeah. But Art's character is always very forthcoming in the fact that he's like, tennis is a means to get me into Stanford, right? Into getting me into, the professional career I want. And it wasn't always intended to be tennis.
Yeah.
It just happened to be a default. And I think that became more the forefront when Tashi gets injured in college, right? So I think they were and they weren't dating or anything to that effect.
I mean, he was scheming though. But
I mean, he was.
Yeah,
he definitely was.
Yeah, because and actually Patrick ended up like kind of being impressed by it, like saying like, "Oh, I like this side of you," trying to be a little dirty.
Yeah.
Trying to be a little conniving and like tell Tashi, "Oh, I don't know if he loves you," and telling Patrick, "Oh, I don't know if she wants a serious boyfriend." Like, he was playing the game.
Right, but I also think too, as a woman, and I'm not speaking for all women. I'm pretty sure men have these experiences as well. But I think as a woman, there's always you have like different loves in your life, right? And I think that this movie is almost a really sort of like a parent example of you can have a love, like this like crazy physical attraction that is just so like natural and like innate that it's just like boom. And I think that was Tashi with Patrick, right? Like they just had this love for the game, and it like they connected in like without saying a whole lot. And then there's always like the love that you is like pure and good for you, and like you want to protect it at all costs, and that is Tashi and Art, right? Of being like, he is a good guy, we have this family together, we work really well, but I don't know that necessarily like that like rip your clothes off type passion is there, but they're really good business partners, right? Like they like this sort of like comfort and level of this is what's good for me in the longer term. Whereas the other one, like you and I had kind of questioned, like, did they allude to the fact that Patrick was on drugs at some point?
Yeah, there's some few months where he scratched his arm, and like he looks unkempt, like a little bit out of it and stuff like that. I mean, when he's on the court, he's all about it, because especially when he learns like, hey, this is how much money. At first, he's like, can I get an advance because I'm going to win? And then the woman's like, oh, but do you know who's like also competing? And he learns that it's Art, because they had this huge falling out after Zendaya got injured. And so he's driven by that. And it's just very interesting seeing the motivations for these two different characters and how they're like kind of fucking with each other. For me, that led to like one of the best scenes in the movie, which is when Art and Patrick are in the sauna and they're kind of having like this dick measuring contest. But it's also a little bit deeper than that. It goes to that sexual tension you were talking about. But man, Art had one of my favorite lines in the script where he's like, I'm just passing through and you live here. Because he just played at different levels. It's just that Art's had a losing streak, so to get his mojo back up, he's playing these like low-level competitions just to get some reps in. It's like when a comic has to go back and do like bar shows or something like that.
And bringers and things like that. No, of course.
Well, they don't do bringers. That's worse than an open mic.
I mean, I don't know. I don't do comedy, so.
Imagine if I had to do a bringer again, T.
I would not be there.
Jesus Christ. You didn't bring anybody. Well, I couldn't even bring my wife, so you ain't going to have no audience.
I paid my dues and bringer shows
Years ago.
and
I know.
we don't need to go. So I agree. Yes, you know what? I take it back. Like, no. So yeah, so there are a lot of really good, well-written scenes. And I think all three actors do a really great job because they're playing themselves at different points in their lives. And so you get their young teenage versions, you get their young adult in college versions, right? And then you get their adult, years later. Clearly other things have transpired because Tashi and her husband are now like
and stuff, yeah.
they're none. I mean, yeah, they have a family, but they're also famous, right? And they're stupid rich.
Well, she was already rich, and then I guess they never talk about art, but I imagine if you went to boarding school, you probably had some money.
Well, that's what when Tashi meets them, they were like, "How come you didn't go to boarding school?" And she's like, "Because I don't come from money."
Yeah.
Like that's just. And she's like, "My parents would never." They at the time, I guess they would have been able. I guess where people send your kids to boarding school. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have friends that went to boarding school. Or at least boarding school that you paid for, like military schools or,
That's fair.
are a different ball game. But in any case, they do talk about that. And so I think that is like the separation of grit, of being like, y'all could like this game and y'all could even be good at it, but like this grit to like want to be great at it because there's something bigger than you.
Yep.
She was like, that's what Tashi has that they don't, because her husband, like he's talking like there's a actually really great scene where Patrick is telling Tashi pretty much about like her life, right? Like, your husband just wants to take care of his daughter and like retire, right?
Oh,
and like he's like trying to convince her to be his coach.
Yep.
And she's just like not trying to entertain it. And then her husband breaks down and asks her permission. Like, or not ask her permission, but is like, if I don't win,
is that okay?
Like, is that okay? Are you gonna leave? And she was like, I'm like prepared to leave you. And they like break down and she was like, well, as your coach, she's like telling him, as your coach, I'm prepared to leave you. And you're like, ooh, is that the separation between like the wife and the coach job, because she doesn't say like as your wife. She was like, as your coach. But it's a very sort of like powerful moment in recognizing that for her, and obviously her injury comes up quite a bit. And it's just like the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, you will never know how great she could have been because of that injury. And so that is where I just found that scene to be so like well written, like well directed. The acting in it is like superb as well. And I think it was like very telling of where the culmination of these three actors and kind of like, why we were introduced to them in the first place and why this love triangle exists.
For sure. And like, it's an interesting movie because it's not like a sports drama and it's not quite a thriller. It's like, I don't even want to call it a dramedy. Like, it's just an interesting, like, it's a movie with a bunch of different, like, touches on a few different genres. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to put it in one box. And that's kind of like Luca's, vibe with his films and stuff. But, like, yeah, the performances were phenomenal. I like Zendaya. I think, like, it's undeniable that she's a movie star. I think this movie just further solidifies it. I do think if there were to be an awards conversation about this movie, I think probably the script and maybe one of the men, if not both of them. But I don't know. Like, the more I think about the movie, the more I like it more. But the more I'm like, I don't know if this is going to carry through to award season, which is like several months from now, because the script I think can.
Yeah.
But I think this is a breakout role for Josh O'Connor if you're not familiar with him with The Crown, which we weren't.
Yeah. No.
Because I was talking to a fellow writer, and she was like, "Oh yeah, like women love that guy," And I was like, okay, but like he does this smile,
Yeah.
this fucking smile in the movie, and I'm like, they do it a few times, and I'm like, that's gonna make him a star.
Yeah, like and likable and all that stuff.
And then Mike Faust is just, I've told you when we talked about West Side Story, I'm like, he's the best thing in the movie.
Yeah.
But Ariana DeBose, of course, like she was great, but I thought
Yeah,
he was
but-
phenomenal because I had no idea who he was.
Yeah. But Ariana DeBose is playing an Anita character. We talked about this,
Yeah.
so we don't need to do this on this podcast. But I would say that it's hard pressed, and either they wrote this character specifically for Zendaya, or Zendaya came in with a very strong hand and made changes and choices and changes, whatever it is, because it is almost like I can't picture anybody else in this role but her.
Okay, yeah, that's special.
Like think
so
of
special.
young, not young, but like think of actresses currently that could play teenage version of themselves, young 20 versions of themselves and 30-year-old, and still be like a badass bitch in Chanel flats, coaching her husband while still taking care of her daughter.
Yeah, and they filmed, like, the cinematography in this film was great, and they filmed her. She looked amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like it is I'd be hard pressed if Zendaya, if part of getting Zendaya to do a movie is that she controls her image, how you shoot her,
Oh, for
like
sure.
her wardrobe. I wouldn't be surprised if Law Roach styled her from afar, because like even her stylings are like so good.
Yep. She's a star. She's a star, and I think this movie solidified that. Tatiana, as you know, on Medium Popcorn, we rate movies on scales of popcorn, small, medium, large, XL for the exceptional. If a movie doesn't deserve a bag of popcorn, we put it into the stale pile, where we pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on top of it.
Piles of stale popcorn. I thought we were doing burnt kernels or something.
No, that's not what won the poll. I'm sorry. Stale popcorn's what won. So what say you? We watched Challengers.
I am giving it a large.
Okay.
I'm actually, we got to see a special screening of it, and I know I'm ready for it to be released so we can see it again and maybe see some like nuanced things that we didn't notice the first time, because, when you see things with a new lens, right, you can pick up on subtle gestures and foreshadowing and things like that. I think the styling was amazing as far as like Zendaya, the wardrobe, all of that. I think all three sort of like lead actors, I know they get supporting, but they worked really well together.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell, they have really great chemistry. There's nothing I didn't like about this movie. And normally
Did you think it was too long? It's a little over. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
No, because normally I'm quick to be like, this movie could have been at least 15 minutes shorter. And I mean that the tennis scene, just like the tennis like shots are just like so good.
Absolutely.
And I don't watch tennis. I could follow along. It's just not my jam. And there was a moment where you're like holding your breath, like you're playing the fucking game with them.
Yeah, it was that the last 10 minutes definitely are very, very tense.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because that's when you're like watching a good movie, when you feel that tension building. I remember the audience being on the edge of their seats. Now, the very ending, I think, might be a little controversial. I'm curious, folks, if you watch it, tweet at us or send us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/mediapopcorn. Let us know what you thought of the ending of Challengers. But it was definitely interesting. I remember being like, what? And that's why I give it a large. On my end, I think that it's an incredible story. Phenomenal performances, like you said, great cinematography. I love the musical score. That's like a throwback to the 80s by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I remember hearing it, and I'm like, I feel like this is the guys from Social Network.
No,
Like
the
really
musical score was like really good.
They're on a tear lately. Holy shit, between like this and I was actually just listening to their score for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah.
Because they had some good stuff there. Like, they're fucking killing it. But
yeah, that's what I said. There's nothing like I genuinely did not like about this movie. As far as, like you said, award season, you touched upon it. I don't know. It's still early for awards.
Exactly. But a lot of people are like, oh, Oscar buzz for Zendaya. And I'm like, maybe as a producer,
Maybe, yeah.
Like this film could maybe get in the top 10 for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, acting. I mean, we just have to see what's coming out, you know. And I mean, with the strikes happening, you know, most of last year, there might not be a whole lot coming out, which would make it a contender. But there's still a lot of year left, and who knows. I would say that personally, I don't know that this is Zendaya's best role. I think she has a better role that's far more like worthy of winning awards. And the caveat though of awards have just been so subjective, you know, always. And the awards we're talking about often celebrate mediocrity of the of the Caucasian descent. So there's no reason why she couldn't win an award for this particular role. I just think that she has a better role that's like that could be deserving. I don't know what that role is. I think there's a future version, but I'm not about to like not give her flowers for it either.
Yeah.
So
fair enough. Well, folks, that's our mini review on Challengers. Hope you all get to check it out. And again, leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/mediapopcorn. The link is in the show notes to let us know what you thought of Challengers. And Tatiana, how can people follow you on social media if they choose to do so?
You can find me on the Instagrams. Sorry. No, it's Instagram at Boricua Collins.
All right. And folks, y'all know you can follow me at Frodo_Blackins on all social media platforms, particularly Instagram. That's where I'm at most days. And the show is at Medium P Podcast on the same platforms. And be sure to go over to patreon.com/Medium Popcorn. You can subscribe to any tier, $2, $5, $10, $15. It all supports the show. You can even try out the $2 tier for a week, see if it's a good fit for you, if you enjoy it. And if so, just keep subscribing. Or you can leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application. We will read on the show. All that stuff helps, with the show and the visibility and just getting the word out. So we appreciate y'all. And Tatiana, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Challengers.
Thank you for having me. I love speaking to our audience.
All right. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Medium popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.